The sky over New York City darkened as massive ships descended from above. They were sleek, metallic, and unlike anything humanity had ever seen. People stopped in their tracks, pointing upward with a mix of awe and fear. The ships hovered silently, casting long shadows over the streets below. Then, without warning, holographic projections appeared around the city. The images showed strange creatures, tall, with shimmering blue skin and elongated limbs. Their voices echoed through the air, deep and commanding. Humans. One of them began, "You are primitive. Your wars, your greed, your destruction of your own planet prove you are unfit to govern yourselves." Jack Taylor stood among the crowd, his notebook clutched tightly in his hand. A journalist by trade, he had spent years chasing stories that mattered. But this was different. This wasn't just another headline. It was history unfolding right before his eyes. He jotted down notes furiously, trying to capture every detail. Around him, people whispered nervously. Some looked angry, others seemed terrified. Nearby, Rachel Morgan watched the scene unfold from her apartment window. She was an astrophysicist who had always believed aliens existed somewhere out there in the vastness of space, but she never imagined they would come here. Not like this. Her phone buzzed constantly with alerts and messages from colleagues asking if she had any answers. She didn't. Not yet. Still, she couldn't look away. The alien speaking on the projection identified himself as Zorvak, leader of the Virith. His tone dripped with disdain as he continued. "We have observed your species for many cycles. You call yourselves intelligent, but your actions say otherwise. We are here to decide whether you deserve to continue existing." Rachel felt a chill run down her spine. These weren't explorers or curious visitors. They were judges, and they had already made up their minds about humanity. She grabbed her coat and headed outside, needing to see it all firsthand. When she reached the street, she found herself surrounded by hundreds of others, all staring up at the ships in silence. Jack noticed her almost immediately. There was something about the way she carried herself, calm but focused, that caught his attention. He approached her cautiously. "You're not panicking," he said, more as an observation than a question. "I'm a scientist," Rachel replied, her voice steady. "Panicking won't help us figure out what's going on." Jack nodded, impressed. "I'm Jack Taylor. I write for the Times. Mind if I ask you a few questions?" "Go ahead," Rachel said, though her eyes remained fixed on the ships. "What do you think they want?" Jack asked, gesturing toward the sky. Rachel hesitated. "If I had to guess, they're here to evaluate us. Maybe even intervene. But we don't know enough yet." As they spoke, the projections shifted again. This time, images of Earth appeared. Burning forests, polluted oceans, cities ravaged by war. The Virith narrated each image with cold precision. "This is your legacy," Zorvak declared. "Destruction, chaos, savagery." The crowd murmured uneasily. Some shouted back, defending humanity, while others hung their heads in shame. Jack scribbled furiously in his notebook, capturing every reaction. Rachel clenched her fists, feeling a mix of anger and frustration. Yes, humanity had its flaws, but it also had potential. How could these aliens dismiss them so easily? Suddenly, the ships emitted a low hum, vibrating through the ground beneath their feet. Then, just as quickly as they had arrived, the projections vanished. The ships remained suspended in the air, silent and unmoving. "What now?" Jack muttered under his breath. Rachel turned to him, her expression determined. "Now we wait and prepare." Neither of them realized how much those words would come to define the days ahead. The next morning, the streets of New York were quieter than usual. People moved cautiously, glancing up at the sky every few minutes, as if expecting another message from the Virith. Jack Taylor sat in a small cafe, typing furiously on his laptop. His article about the aliens' arrival had gone viral overnight, and now his inbox was flooded with messages, some praising his reporting, others accusing him of fearmongering. He ignored them all, focusing instead on what he would write next. Outside, Rachel Morgan walked briskly toward the city's Science Institute. She had been summoned by a government official who wanted her input on how to handle the situation. Her mind raced with possibilities. Were the Virith truly here to judge humanity? Or was there something more to their sudden appearance? She didn't trust them, not completely, but she knew that panicking wouldn't solve anything. At the Institute, Rachel met Alex Bennett, a military strategist with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. He introduced himself quickly, wasting no time on pleasantries. "Dr. Morgan," he said, shaking her hand firmly, "we need your help. These aliens aren't just observers. They are testing us." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Testing us? What do you mean?" Alex gestured for her to follow him into a conference room. On the table lay several sheets of paper covered in strange symbols and diagrams. "Last night, after they left, these appeared online," he explained. "It's some kind of puzzle, or maybe a challenge." Rachel studied the pages closely. The patterns looked complex but familiar, like advanced mathematics combined with logic problems. "If this is a test," she said slowly, "then solving it might be our best chance to show them we're not as primitive as they think." Meanwhile, Jack continued his work, interviewing random people on the street. Most were scared, unsure of what to do or believe. "They called us savages," one man told him bitterly. "But look at their ships. How can we compete with that?" Others, however, weren't ready to give up. A young woman named Emily Dawson approached Jack, holding a tablet filled with data. "I've been analyzing their language," she said excitedly. "It's not perfect yet, but I think I can decode parts of it." Jack blinked in surprise. "You're doing this on your own?" Emily nodded. "Someone has to try. If we can understand them better, maybe we can figure out what they really want." Back at the Institute, Rachel worked tirelessly alongside a team of scientists and engineers. Together, they began deciphering the alien puzzles. It wasn't easy. The Virith used concepts far beyond human understanding in some cases, but Rachel refused to give up. Every time she hit a roadblock, she reminded herself why this mattered. Humanity's future could depend on it. Days passed, and tensions grew. The Virith remained silent, their ships still hovering ominously above major cities worldwide. News outlets reported sightings of similar projections in other countries, each one mocking humanity's failures. Governments scrambled to respond, but no one seemed to know what to do. Finally, Rachel and her team cracked one of the puzzles. It involved aligning celestial coordinates with mathematical equations, a task so intricate that only someone like Rachel could have solved it. When she presented her findings to Alex, his expression softened with relief. "This is good work, Dr. Morgan," he said. "Now let's hope it's enough." That evening, the Virith responded. Their holograms reappeared, showing Zorvac once again. This time, his tone carried a hint of curiosity rather than outright disdain. "Humans," he announced, "you have demonstrated potential, but potential alone is meaningless without action." Rachel watched the broadcast from her lab, feeling a flicker of hope. Maybe they had underestimated humanity after all. Across town, Jack finished writing his latest article. In it, he described the efforts of people like Rachel and Emily, ordinary individuals stepping up in extraordinary times. As he hit send, he couldn't help but wonder, was humanity truly as helpless as the Virith claimed? Or were they capable of surprising even themselves? Only time would tell. The days that followed felt like a strange mix of calm and chaos. The Virith had stopped their constant broadcasts, leaving Earth in an uneasy silence. But the puzzles they had sent continued to appear online, each one more complex than the last. Rachel Morgan spent every waking moment working on them, her mind racing to connect the dots before time ran out. She wasn't alone. Scientists from around the world joined forces, sharing data and ideas through encrypted channels. It was humanity's first real attempt at global cooperation, driven by desperation. Jack Taylor, meanwhile, found himself drawn deeper into the story. His articles about the alien puzzles gained widespread attention, sparking debates across social media. People argued over whether solving the challenges would prove humanity's worth, or simply amuse the virus further. Jack interviewed experts, activists, and ordinary citizens, trying to capture the mood of a planet holding its breath. He even reached out to Emily Dawson, the young woman who had been decoding the aliens' language. Together, they began piecing together fragments of information, hoping to uncover the virus's true intentions. One evening, Rachel made a breakthrough. She had been staring at a particularly difficult puzzle for hours when something clicked, a pattern hidden within the numbers. Her heart raced as she realized what it meant. "This isn't just a test of intelligence," she told Alex Bennett during their daily meeting. "It's also a map." Alex leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "A map? To what?" Rachel pointed to her notes. "Look here. These coordinates match locations on Earth, places where natural resources are abundant. They're studying our planet, learning everything they can about us." Alex frowned. "You think they're planning something?" "I don't know," Rachel admitted. "But I don't trust them. We need to stay ahead of whatever they're doing." As Rachel worked with her team to decode more puzzles, Jack published an article revealing his suspicions. He cited anonymous sources claiming the virus weren't just observing. They were testing Earth's defenses. The article went viral, igniting outrage and fear. Governments scrambled to respond, while conspiracy theories spread like wildfire. Some accused Jack of exaggerating, but others thanked him for speaking the truth. The virus noticed, too. Zorvak appeared again in another holographic message, this time addressing humanity directly. "You question our motives," he said, his voice cold and mocking. "Yet you do not question your own failures, your wars, your greed. You cling to weapons instead of wisdom." Rachel watched the broadcast with growing frustration. The virus acted as if they were superior beings, untouched by flaws or mistakes. But Rachel knew better. No species was perfect, not humans, and certainly not the virus. Still, she couldn't deny their technology was far beyond anything Earth had ever seen. If it came to a fight, humanity would be hopelessly outmatched. Later that night, Rachel met with Alex in a secure facility outside the city. They reviewed satellite images showing increased activity around the virus ships. Strange energy readings suggested they were preparing for something big. "They're not just here to judge us," Alex said grimly. "They're gathering intel. And once they have what they need, they'll make their move." Rachel finished for him. She clenched her fists, feeling anger bubbling inside her. Humanity was being treated like lab rats, dissected and dismissed without a second thought. But Rachel refused to let that happen without a fight. Back in the city, Jack teamed up with Emily to dig deeper into the virus language. They discovered subtle clues hidden in the symbols, phrases that hinted at fear of something greater, something even the virus couldn't control. Jack stared at the screen, his mind racing. What could possibly scare a race as advanced as the virus? "We need to tell someone," Emily urged, her voice trembling. "If there's a bigger threat out there, we have to prepare." Jack nodded, though doubt lingered in his mind. Would anyone believe them? Or would they dismiss it as paranoia? The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, but the picture they formed was darker and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Humanity stood on the edge of a precipice, unsure of what lay ahead, but determined to face it head-on. The world was beginning to crack under the weight of uncertainty. Governments argued over how to respond to the virus, while citizens grew restless, unsure whether to prepare for war or beg for mercy. Rachel Morgan spent her days buried in research, her nights haunted by questions she couldn't answer. She knew the virus were up to something, but what? And why did they seem so determined to paint humanity as worthless? One morning, Alex Bennett called an emergency meeting at the secure facility where Rachel had been working. The room buzzed with tension as scientists and military personnel gathered around a large table. Alex stood at the head, his expression grim. "We've detected unusual energy spikes near the Virith ships," he began. "They're not just observing us. They're testing our defenses." Rachel felt a chill run down her spine. Testing? For what? Alex hesitated before answering. For invasion, or worse. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. If the Virith decided Earth wasn't worth saving, they might destroy it, or leave it vulnerable to something even more dangerous. Rachel clenched her fists, anger bubbling inside her. Humanity wasn't perfect, but it deserved a chance to prove itself. Meanwhile, Jack Taylor worked tirelessly to uncover the truth. His latest article had sparked outrage, but it also caught the attention of people who wanted answers. One of them was Emily Dawson, who continued decoding the Virith's language. Together, they discovered fragments of information that painted a chilling picture. The Virith weren't just afraid. They were running from something. "Look at this," Emily said, pointing to her laptop screen. She had translated part of a phrase hidden in the alien symbols. It read, "The Caliph are coming." Jack frowned. "Who, or what, are the Caliph?" Emily shook her head. "I don't know, but whatever they are, the Virith are terrified of them." Jack's mind raced. Could this be the real reason the Virith were here? Not to judge humanity, but to use Earth as a hiding place. He knew he had to share this with Rachel and Alex, but he also knew they wouldn't believe him without proof. That evening, Rachel met with Alex to discuss their next steps. As they talked, Jack burst into the room, out of breath. "You need to hear this," he said, holding up his phone. On the screen was Emily's translation of the mysterious phrase. Alex studied it carefully, his jaw tightening. If this is true, then we're dealing with more than just the Virith. We're facing a threat that even they can't handle. Rachel nodded, her mind racing. If the Virith are scared, we should be too. But maybe, just maybe, we can use this to our advantage. Over the next few days, Rachel and her team worked around the clock to gather more evidence. They analyzed satellite data, intercepted Virith communications, and pieced together clues about the Caliph. What they found was terrifying. The Caliph were hunters, predators who wiped out civilizations for sport. They left nothing behind, not even ruins. As the reality of the situation sank in, divisions began to form among humans. Some leaders argued for surrendering to the Virith, hoping to avoid destruction. Others pushed for resistance, believing humanity could fight back. Protests erupted in cities worldwide, with people demanding answers their governments couldn't provide. Through it all, Rachel, Alex, Jack, and Emily remained focused. They knew humanity's survival depended on staying united and finding a way to protect Earth from both the Virith and the Caliph. But time was running out. The Virith's tests grew more aggressive, their messages more threatening. Zorvak appeared once again, his voice colder than ever. "Your time is almost up," he declared. "Prove your worth, or face the consequences." Rachel stared at the hologram, her resolve hardening. Humanity had always risen to challenges, no matter how impossible they seemed. This time would be no different. Tensions on Earth reached a breaking point. The Virith's constant tests and mocking messages had divided humanity more than ever before. Some countries wanted to surrender, believing the aliens might show mercy if humans submitted without a fight. Others argued for resistance, insisting that humanity should stand its ground no matter the cost. Protests filled the streets, with people shouting slogans like, "We are not savages," and "Fight for Earth." Meanwhile, Rachel Morgan, Alex Bennett, Jack Taylor, and Emily Dawson worked tirelessly behind the scenes, knowing that time was running out. Rachel spent hours in the lab, analyzing data and piecing together clues about the Caliph. She shared her findings with Alex, who immediately understood the gravity of the situation. "If the Virith are running from these hunters," Alex said, pacing the room, "then we're caught in the middle of something much bigger than us." Rachel nodded. "And if the Caliph come here, they won't care whether we're primitive or advanced. They'll destroy everything." Jack listened intently, taking notes for his next article. He admired Rachel's determination, but couldn't shake the feeling that most people wouldn't believe such a story. How could he convince them that an even greater threat loomed beyond the virus? Emily chimed in, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. What if we use the virus's own arrogance against them? If we can prove we're smarter and stronger than they think, maybe they'll work with us instead of dismissing us. Alex stopped pacing and looked at her. It's risky, but it might be our only shot. The group agreed to focus their efforts on two fronts: preparing for war and finding a way to unite humanity. Rachel and her team continued decoding alien puzzles, while Jack and Emily spread awareness through articles and social media. Their goal was simple: to inspire hope and action. As days passed, the virus grew more aggressive. Zorvak appeared again, this time broadcasting images of humanity's darkest moments: wars, famines, environmental disasters. His voice boomed across cities worldwide. You call yourselves civilized, yet your history is stained with blood and destruction. What makes you worthy of survival? Rachel clenched her fists as she watched the broadcast. She hated how the virus twisted the truth, ignoring humanity's achievements and potential. But she also knew they weren't entirely wrong. Humans had made mistakes, terrible ones, but they had also created beauty, solved problems, and dreamed of better futures. Determined to change the narrative, Rachel worked with Alex to rally global leaders. Together, they formed a coalition called Unity Front, bringing together scientists, soldiers, and ordinary citizens. The message was clear: humanity wasn't perfect, but it was worth fighting for. Jack played a crucial role in spreading Unity Front's mission. His articles highlighted stories of courage and resilience, showing the world that humanity still had much to offer. One story featured a farmer who had turned his land into a sanctuary for endangered animals. Another told of a young girl who invented a device to clean polluted rivers. These tales inspired millions, reminding people of what made them special. Meanwhile, Emily focused on cracking the virus's language. She discovered patterns suggesting the aliens were secretly scanning Earth's defenses. They're planning something big, she warned. We need to act fast. Rachel took Emily's findings to Alex, who immediately ordered increased surveillance of the virus ships. Sure enough, strange energy readings confirmed their suspicions. The virus weren't just testing Earth. They were mapping it, preparing for an invasion. Despite the growing danger, Rachel refused to give up. She gathered everyone in the lab one evening, her voice firm. We've faced challenges before, and we've always found a way to overcome them. This time will be no different. We'll fight, not because we hate the virus, but because we love our home. Her words resonated deeply. For the first time in weeks, the group felt a glimmer of hope. They didn't know what lay ahead, but they were ready to face it together. Unbeknownst to them, the real storm was still approaching, and when it arrived, nothing would ever be the same. The days blurred together as humanity prepared for the unknown. Rachel Morgan worked tirelessly, her mind racing with plans and possibilities. She knew the virus weren't just observers. They were preparing for something catastrophic. But what if Emily was right? What if the virus were running from the Caliph, those mysterious hunters that even they feared? If that was true, then Earth wasn't just a testing ground. It was a potential battleground. One night, Rachel sat in the lab staring at a series of intercepted signals from the virus ships. The data was encrypted, but she had begun to recognize patterns in their language thanks to Emily's translations. Suddenly, something clicked, a phrase buried deep within the code. Her heart raced as she deciphered it. Caliph fleet detected. Arrival imminent. Rachel's hands trembled as she called Alex Bennett. When he arrived, she showed him the message. His face turned pale. If the Caliph are coming, he said quietly, then the virus won't stay to fight. They'll abandon us. Rachel nodded. And when they leave, we'll be defenseless. Alex took a deep breath, his military training kicking in. Then we need to prepare. Whatever weapons or technology we have, we need to upgrade them, now. The next morning, Rachel presented her findings to Unity Front. The room fell silent as she explained the situation. "The Virith aren't our real enemy," she said firmly. "The Caliph are. And if we don't act fast, none of us will survive." Jack Taylor listened intently, scribbling notes for his next article. He knew this revelation would shock the world, but it could also unite people. For too long, humanity had been divided by fear and mistrust. Now they had no choice but to come together or face extinction. Emily stepped forward, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "We've learned so much from the Virith's puzzles and signals. We can use that knowledge to adapt our technology. Their arrogance might actually save us." Rachel agreed. "We need to repurpose everything we have, nuclear weapons, satellites, even civilian tech, and turn it into something that can defend us against the Caliph." Unity Front sprang into action. Scientists collaborated with engineers, soldiers worked alongside civilians, and governments set aside their differences to pool resources. Factories that once produced cars and phones now churned out energy shields and plasma cannons. It was chaotic, exhausting work, but everyone shared the same goal: survival. Meanwhile, Jack published an article revealing the truth about the Caliph. At first, many dismissed it as another conspiracy theory. But when Zorvac appeared again, his tone noticeably panicked. People began to listen. "The Caliph approach," he announced, his usual arrogance replaced by fear. "You cannot comprehend their power. Pray you never encounter them." For the first time, humanity saw a vulnerability in the Virith. They weren't invincible gods. They were refugees, just like anyone fleeing danger. Some humans felt pity. Others saw opportunity. If the Virith were scared, maybe humanity could stand a chance. As preparations continued, Rachel and Alex devised a bold plan. Using the coordinates hidden in the Virith's puzzles, they identified key locations where Earth's defenses could be most effective. These sites would serve as hubs for launching counterattacks if the Caliph arrived. But time was slipping away. The Virith grew increasingly desperate, their ships moving erratically in orbit. Zorvac made one final broadcast, his voice trembling. "We have underestimated you, humans. Perhaps there is strength in your chaos. But know this, the Caliph do not negotiate. They consume. Prepare yourselves, or perish." Rachel watched the hologram fade, her jaw tightening. She turned to Alex. "This is it. No more tests. No more games. It's all or nothing now." Across the globe, people braced for impact. Cities fortified their defenses, families said tearful goodbyes, and soldiers stood ready to fight. Humanity had always risen to challenges, no matter how impossible they seemed. This time would be no different. As the sun set over a planet united by fear and hope, Rachel whispered to herself, "We're not savages. We're survivors." The sky above Earth darkened as the Caliph fleet emerged from the void of space. Their ships were unlike anything humanity, or even the Virith, had ever seen. Massive and jagged, they looked like weapons carved from black stone, their surfaces shimmering faintly with an eerie light. The moment they appeared, the Virith ships scattered, abandoning their positions around Earth in a desperate attempt to flee. Rachel Morgan watched the chaos unfold from Unity Front's command center. Her heart pounded as she stared at the monitors showing the Caliph fleet growing larger by the second. "They're here," she whispered, her voice trembling despite her resolve. Alex Bennett stood beside her, his face grim but determined. "This is it. Everything we've done leads to this moment." Jack Taylor was already outside, reporting live from the streets. His camera captured the panic spreading through cities as people realized the Virith had abandoned them. But amidst the fear, there was also defiance. Civilians helped each other board up windows, soldiers distributed makeshift energy weapons, and volunteers worked non-stop to fortify defenses. Humanity wasn't giving up without a fight. Emily Dawson remained in the lab, monitoring the Caliph's movements. She had hacked into satellite systems to track their trajectory and discovered something alarming. "They're not just passing through," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "They're targeting us. They're going to attack." Rachel clenched her fists. "Then we hit them first. We can't let them take control." Using the coordinates Rachel and Alex had identified, Unity Front launched its first wave of counterattacks. Repurposed nuclear missiles, now equipped with plasma technology, soared into the sky. For a moment, hope flickered as several Caliph ships exploded under the barrage. But then the enemy retaliated, and their response was devastating. Beams of pure energy tore through Earth's atmosphere, obliterating entire cities in seconds. The ground shook violently, and the air filled with smoke and screams. Rachel gripped the edge of the console, forcing herself to stay focused. "We can't stop now," she said, her voice firm. "If we fall apart, we're finished." In the streets, Jack documented the destruction while helping survivors find shelter. He saw acts of bravery that moved him to tears: a father shielding his child from falling debris, a stranger pulling an injured woman to safety, a teenager handing out water bottles to panicked families. Despite everything, humanity refused to crumble. Back at the command center, Alex directed the next phase of the battle. "We need to target their core ship," he told Rachel. "If we can disable it, we might buy ourselves time." Rachel nodded. "But how do we get close enough? Their shields are impenetrable." Emily overheard them and rushed over, her eyes bright with an idea. "What if we use the virus tech against them? Their ships are still in range. We could hack into one and steal their shield frequencies." It was risky, but they didn't have a better option. Alex immediately assembled a team of pilots and engineers, including Rachel, to carry out the plan. As they boarded a modified fighter jet loaded with experimental weapons, Rachel glanced at Alex. "If this works, it'll change everything." "And if it doesn't?" he asked quietly. "Then at least we tried," she replied, her voice steady. The mission was perilous. Enemy fire lit up the sky as their small team dodged explosions and debris. Inside the jet, Rachel worked frantically to interface with a damaged Firith ship drifting nearby. Sweat dripped down her face as lines of alien code scrolled across her screen. Finally, she found what she needed: the shield frequency. "We've got it," she shouted. "Now let's end this." With the stolen data, Earth's forces launched a concentrated assault on the Caliph's core ship. Beams of energy collided in the sky, lighting up the darkness like a violent storm. For a moment, it seemed hopeless. But then the core ship shuddered and exploded in a blinding flash. Cheers erupted from the command center, but Rachel knew the battle wasn't over yet. The Caliph fleet was vast, and more ships were closing in. Still, for the first time since the invasion began, humanity felt a spark of hope. Outside, Jack filmed the burning remains of the core ship, his voice cracking with emotion. "We're still standing," he said into the camera, "and we're not done fighting." The explosion of the Caliph's core ship sent shockwaves through the atmosphere, shaking the ground and rattling windows miles below. For a brief moment, the sky seemed to lighten as if Earth itself was taking a breath. But the relief didn't last long. The remaining Caliph ships regrouped, their jagged forms casting ominous shadows over the planet. Humanity had struck a blow, but it wasn't enough. Inside Unity Front's command center, Rachel Morgan stared at the monitors, her mind racing. The destruction they had caused was significant, but the Caliph fleet was still massive. Worse, their attacks grew more precise, targeting key cities and military bases. "They're adapting," she said grimly. "We need another plan, and fast." Alex Bennett nodded, his face etched with exhaustion. He hadn't slept in days, and neither had anyone else on the team. "If we can't take them all out, we'll have to hold them off until reinforcements arrive, or until the Virith come back." Rachel shot him a sharp look. "Do you really think they'll help us after running away?" "They don't have a choice," Alex replied. "If the Caliph win, they're next." Meanwhile, Jack Taylor continued documenting the battle from the front lines. His camera captured scenes of devastation: burning buildings, broken roads, and countless lives lost. But he also filmed moments of resilience. A medic treating wounded civilians under fire, engineers repairing damaged weapons in real time, and ordinary people risking their lives to protect others. These images gave humanity a reason to keep fighting. Emily Dawson remained glued to her computer, analyzing every scrap of data she could gather about the Caliph. She noticed something unusual, a pattern in their movements. Their ships weren't attacking randomly. They were following specific coordinates. "They're looking for something," she told Rachel urgently. "Something hidden on Earth." Rachel frowned. "Hidden? Like what?" "I don't know yet," Emily admitted. "But whatever it is, it must be important to them." Determined to find answers, Rachel shared Emily's discovery with Alex. Together, they cross-referenced the coordinates with geological maps and satellite scans. What they found shocked them. Deep beneath the surface of one of the targeted areas lay an ancient structure, a relic buried long before recorded history. Could this be what the Caliph were searching for? "We need to get there first," Rachel said firmly. "If we can figure out what it is, maybe we can use it against them." Alex agreed, though the risks were enormous. The area was already under heavy attack, and reaching the site would mean flying directly into enemy territory. Still, they had no other options. A small team, including Rachel and Alex, prepared to deploy while Jack and Emily coordinated support efforts from behind the lines. As their transport sped toward the location, Rachel felt a mix of fear and determination. The stakes couldn't be higher. If they failed, humanity might not survive another day. But if they succeeded, they might uncover a weapon powerful enough to turn the tide. When they arrived, the scene was chaos. Fires raged across the landscape, and Caliph drones swarmed overhead. The team fought their way through the destruction, guided by Emily's directions. Finally, they reached the entrance to the underground structure, a massive stone door covered in alien symbols. Rachel recognized some of the markings from the Virith puzzles. "This isn't just a relic," she said, her voice trembling with awe. "It's a message from someone who came before." Before they could investigate further, a deafening roar shook the ground. A massive Caliph warship descended above them, its weapons charging for another devastating strike. Rachel clenched her fists, knowing they had only seconds to act. "Whatever this thing is," Alex said, his voice steady despite the danger, "it's our only chance." With no time to lose, Rachel stepped forward and placed her hand on the door. To everyone's astonishment, it began to open. The massive stone door groaned as it slowly opened, revealing a dimly lit chamber filled with glowing symbols and strange machinery. Rachel Morgan stepped inside cautiously, her breath catching at the sight before her. The room was unlike anything she had ever seen. Smooth walls etched with intricate patterns that pulsed faintly with light. In the center stood a pedestal, hovering slightly above the ground, with an orb resting on top of it. Alex Bennett followed close behind, his weapon raised in case of danger. "What is this place?" he asked, his voice low. Rachel shook her head, her eyes wide with wonder. "I don't know, but it's not human. This must be from whoever left those coordinates, the ones the Caliph were searching for." As they approached the pedestal, the orb began to glow brighter, reacting to their presence. Emily's voice crackled through their earpieces. "Rachel, Alex, you need to hurry. The Caliph ship is charging its main weapon." Rachel ignored the warning for a moment, focusing instead on the orb. She reached out hesitantly and touched it. Instantly, a surge of energy coursed through the chamber, and holographic images appeared around them. They showed planets being destroyed, civilizations wiped out, and ships fleeing into the stars. It was a record, a warning left by an ancient race that had faced the Caliph before. "They knew," Rachel whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "They fought the Caliph too, and they lost. But they didn't give up. They built this." Alex glanced at her sharply. "Built what? What does it do?" Rachel studied the orb carefully. "It's a weapon, a failsafe. If we activate it, it could destroy the Caliph fleet. but it might take Earth's atmosphere with it. Alex froze, his mind racing. Are you saying we have to choose between saving humanity now or risking everything? Before Rachel could answer, the ground shook violently as the Caliph warship fired its weapon. The blast struck nearby, sending debris flying and collapsing part of the entrance. Dust filled the air, and alarms blared in their ears. "We're out of time," Emily shouted over the comms. Rachel turned to Alex, her expression resolute. "There's no choice. We can't let them win. Not like this." Alex hesitated, then nodded. "Do it. I'll hold them off." "No," Rachel said firmly. "You're the strategist. You need to get back to command and lead the rest of the fight. I'll stay here and activate the orb." Alex stared at her, torn between duty and loyalty. Finally, he grabbed her arm. "Promise me you'll find a way to survive." "I promise," Rachel lied, forcing a smile. As Alex ran back toward the exit, Rachel focused on the orb. She placed both hands on it, feeling its warmth grow stronger. The holograms shifted, showing instructions written in the same alien language she had been studying. Her mind worked quickly, deciphering the steps needed to activate the device. Outside, Jack Taylor filmed the chaos unfolding around him. Soldiers clashed with Caliph drones, explosions rocked the horizon, and the warship loomed overhead like a storm cloud. He spotted Alex emerging from the underground structure, bloodied but alive. "What's happening?" Jack demanded, running up to him. "The relic. It's going to end this," Alex said grimly. "But Rachel's still down there." Jack's heart sank. He wanted to argue, to demand they go back for her, but he knew there wasn't enough time. Instead, he turned his camera toward the entrance, capturing the final moments of the battle above ground. Inside the chamber, Rachel completed the activation sequence. The orb pulsed with blinding light, and a deep hum filled the air. She took a step back, bracing herself for the inevitable. Through the cracks in the ceiling, she saw the Caliph warship preparing another attack. Then, suddenly, beams of pure energy shot upward from the relic, piercing the ship's hull. The explosion was deafening. The Caliph warship shattered into pieces, raining fire across the sky. The shockwave knocked Rachel off her feet, and darkness began to creep into her vision. As the chamber collapsed around her, she whispered one last word: "Earth." Above ground, Alex, Jack, and the others watched in stunned silence as the remaining Caliph ships retreated, fleeing into the void. Humanity had won, but at a cost. The battle was over, but the scars ran deep. Cities lay in ruins, their streets silent except for the sound of wind blowing through broken windows. The sky, once filled with the jagged shapes of Caliph ships, was now empty, a reminder of both victory and loss. Humanity had survived, but it came at a price no one could forget. Rachel Morgan was gone. Her sacrifice had saved Earth, and though her body was never found, her name became a symbol of hope and courage. Alex Bennett stood near the collapsed entrance to the underground chamber, his fists clenched as he stared at the rubble. He wanted to believe she had made it out somehow, but deep down, he knew better. Rachel had given everything to protect humanity, and she wouldn't have wanted it any other way. Jack Taylor documented the aftermath, his camera capturing images of destruction and resilience side by side. In one frame, a child clung to her mother amidst the ruins. In another, volunteers worked tirelessly to clear debris and rebuild what they could. His final article began with a simple sentence: "Today, we mourn our losses, but tomorrow, we rise again." Emily Dawson returned to the lab, determined to honor Rachel's memory by studying the data recovered from the relic. Though much of it was damaged, fragments remained intact, offering glimpses into the ancient race that had built it. Their message was clear: survival required unity, ingenuity, and sacrifice. Emily vowed to share this knowledge with the world, ensuring that humanity would never face such threats unprepared again. As days turned into weeks, Earth began to heal. Governments set aside old rivalries, working together to restore cities and care for survivors. Unity Front became a global organization dedicated to preparing humanity for whatever challenges might come next. The Virith, who had fled during the height of the conflict, reappeared cautiously. Zorvak addressed Earth one last time, his tone no longer mocking but respectful. "You have proven yourselves stronger than we believed," he said, his holographic form flickering slightly. "We underestimated you, humans, and for that, we offer our aid. Together, let us ensure the Caliph never return." Though some distrusted the Virith's sudden change of heart, most agreed that their help was necessary. With their advanced technology and knowledge, the aliens assisted in rebuilding efforts, sharing resources and strategies to strengthen Earth's defenses. For the first time, humanity and the Virith worked side by side, not as enemies, but as allies. Alex took charge of coordinating these efforts, channeling his grief into action. He often visited the site where Rachel had activated the relic, leaving flowers or simply sitting quietly. Each time, he reminded himself of her determination and bravery. She hadn't just saved Earth, she had shown everyone what humanity was truly capable of. One evening, as the sun set over a scared but hopeful world, Jack finished writing his last article about the invasion. He titled it "A New Dawn." In it, he described how ordinary people had risen to extraordinary heights, proving that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its weapons or technology, but its spirit. "We are not savages," he wrote. "We are dreamers, fighters, survivors. And though we bear the weight of our mistakes, we also carry the promise of a brighter future. Today we stand united, not because we were forced to, but because we chose to. That is our legacy." Years later, when the wounds of war had begun to fade, Rachel's story was told in classrooms and history books. Statues were erected in her honor, and the site of the relic became a monument to human resilience. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged stronger, not perfect, but willing to learn and grow. Earth was still healing, but it was alive. And as the stars shone brightly above, humanity took its first steps toward becoming something greater, a united species ready to face the vastness of space together.